Let's go.
I am Maxwell.
I'm Kwonyin, and welcome to Catharsis Hotline. I am your emotional constipation expert, and we're going to be diving into some topics today, or one topic in particular, regarding just things that come up between us in our relationship. A very prevalent theme.
Things come up sometimes.
Things come up every day. Yeah, but I'm very grateful for Teal Swan for coining this term. There's a concept she calls containment, and I think this is a very important thing to know about, or just have a name to something that can really either make a relationship feel really bad or really good, depending on how much you are receiving containment. I don't know if I said that.
And I think containment can be...
Okay, so yeah, what is...
Containment is kind of like when one person is really looking out for the other person. Kind of like almost in a parental type of a way, where they are really making sure that the other person's needs are getting taken care of, and they take almost as if the other person they're taking ownership of the other person, just like you would take ownership of a car, for example, and just be like really watching out if something goes wrong, making sure that the oil is getting changed and not just letting the car always take care of itself.
Yeah.
Because part of being interdependent with other people is not doing everything independently, but caring for each other, which is also can be tricky. Yeah.
And in our relationship context, where we're talking about, you taking on the masculine polarity and me the feminine polarity, but in, other relationships, you kind of have to like find out who's the one who wants to be the more yang masculine polarity versus the feminine yin polarity. But in our relationship, it's like, yes, you as the polarity that provides containment for me, and that is to be the one who is fending for me and wants to create the one that creates a safe space in order for me to bloom. So
yeah, and I think that something that Teal Swan talks about that is part of the reason why this issue can be a gendered kind of a thing is that in general, not always the case, but general, women do feel generally more unsafe in the world than men. They're really like, I feel like, for example, like if you look at how much women are like sexually assaulted versus men, it's like it is higher. The ones doing crimes more often than women, and women tend to be people that are like smaller or seen as more fragile or aren't learning self-defense either as much. So something I didn't realize is how things that I felt would feel safe to me do not feel safe to Kwonyin. And I have to learn how to intuitively think about what feels safe and unsafe for Kwonyin, and not in a level where I'm not always needing her to tell me so that I can predict it.
But I will also tell you. Yeah, this is the difference where I think as a female feminine being, I feel like it's just so normal to feel constantly unsafe. Even if there isn't an outright thing going on, but it's just this ambient fear that is ever present, that has always been present, of like not feel like, yeah, whether it's internal, external, it's just we live in a really unsafe world where there's constant threat happening, from everywhere. Yeah, and the things that I may pick up on as unsafe, I think we've been realizing you live in a different reality where the same things that I feel triggered by as unsafe would not come into that's not in your radar. So that's why there's this that's been a block into you knowing how to create a safe space for me. And you can only create a safe space for me if you really understand the things I'm feeling unsafe about.
Yeah. And if I can, and also, can I predict them? Can I be thoughtful about them beforehand instead of just afterwards where you're already feeling unsafe?
Yeah. Well, now we've had enough time where you kind of catch a pattern with the things that I feel.
Now I've been kind of assuming that Kwonyin may feel unsafe about something rather than assuming that you're going to feel safe about something, which I also think could be magical thinking for me, because I want you to feel safe for things so I can feel more free to be myself at times. But that is then I'm not seeing into you and how you're actually feeling is coming from an ignorant place. In a place of almost dissociation from the unsafe things of the world, which I do think I have done, like dissociated to a degree from the unsafe things of the world. And be like, I'm not going to think about them. They'll happen to me and then I'll deal with it.
Maybe this is a good way to like segue into also the different kind of families we come from. Yeah.
We're all part of the same family.
All for the same family, but you came from a very different family pattern than my family.
Mm-hmm.
So my family pattern is that, you know, from the lens of containment, my dad did not provide any containment for my mom. And so that was complete chaos because my mom, to compensate for the fact that my dad was just so not there for her, to create safety for her. In fact, he was kind of like the one actively triggering her to feel constantly unsafe, you know? Yeah, like there's just so many examples.
Drunk driving. Yeah.
Just kind of he's just kind of like this, like, whatever goes, and my mom's more type A Virgo, like, she needs to have a plan, but he never has a plan. He's just like, whatever goes, like, just being in the flow. And
Getting lost.
Yeah, getting lost, not looking things up in advance, just kind of, yeah, having more the attitude of like, she'll do it for me. Yeah, just kind of this lackadaisical being in the back seat while my mom is kind of forced to take on more of the masculine role because he wasn't stepping up for that. And so that caused her to become, yeah, more masculine, really controlling and more uptight and scared and anxious. That's a whole ancestral pattern of like the masculine not, you know, that's also my grandparents too, where, you know, the feminine is just feeling so unsafe and there's no caring for that. There's no trying to fend for her. So that created an environment of total chaos growing up. And so I grew up in that really like wanting order and protection and yeah, more of a sense of control because there's just that did not exist. And so I had to create that for myself. And that also created kind of later on in my life more of a sense of I really, because I cannot rely on my parents to provide that containment for me, I really have to create it for myself. And so that made me become very just like, I don't want to rely on anyone and I just have to rely on me, and becoming very like hyper independent. Yeah. And then also being in relationships where I wasn't like even letting myself be taken care of because I didn't even know what that could be on an emotional level. I did have some physical containment from past relationships, but I had a complete blind spot as to what emotional containment is. And that actually is the most important part of, I really feel like, any intimate relationship. And we do this for each other in all kinds of other relationships too, but especially with the person you're with, this is a very important, critical element.
Would you say that emotional containment is like not pushing away somebody else's emotions?
Absolutely.
And validating their emotions, even when those emotions seem to be threatening you?
Yeah, so this was a big, I think we just had a big, or you had a big epiphany very recently because you just couldn't quite relate to the fear that I was experiencing about something. Yeah, and I felt frustrated that you weren't connecting with my fear, and the pattern of you trying to like help me feel better by kind of justifying that my fear isn't, in a way you were invalidating my fear with your logic and with your perspective of like, no, but that's really not what it is. You know?
You don't need to be scared of that.
Yeah,
don't be sad about that.
And to you, I could see it really made sense from your rational, logical place and from you knowing yourself that it was not a threat in your perspective. But for me, it really did feel like a threat.
Or more than a threat. Like, it felt like a violation already.
The fact that you're not even seeing me, you're not getting me.
And I'm violating kwonyin when I'm not validating her emotions.
Yeah, and truly understanding like why it is that I'm feeling this. And so, can you describe your big through this?
Well, there are several ahas, but one of them is Yeah, just that I did not feel safe expressed or held in my emotions growing up. I was told like not to feel bad for things instead of told to okay, it's natural to feel bad about not getting something you want, for example. And so as a child, with my parents and myself, like I created this pattern just where I was not allowed to say how I didn't like something. I had to just appreciate each thing. And so when I see kwonyin having a need, our society in general, especially as a male, like whether it's like our parents or our school or our male, like especially my male friends too, just really invalidated our emotions. Like I would get, I get taunted for expressing any emotion that's especially a negative emotion, and called like a crybaby or something like that, or ingrateful for having some kind of food, even if the person next to me was getting a lot more, and I was like envious of that. I had to repress that, and so I think that it can be hard, but also opening for me to see Yin vouching for her emotional needs that aren't getting met in a way that I wasn't able to do. But my tendency is to push, to kind of try to suppress Kwon-yin's emotions, because I am coming from my own worldview and not seeing how these emotions are completely valid and every emotion is 100% valid, because the emotions are like a natural phenomenon. And even if emotion that Kwon Yin's having seems like very not related to my reality or the present moment, is perfectly related to her past of certain needs not getting met. And the emotion is trying to, you understand that your needs are not getting met. If you're not connected, something I'm learning is that if you're not connected to your emotions, then you are disconnected from what you want, and you're easily controlled by the people around you. And I think that that's part of the reason why children's emotions are so suppressed, because it makes them easier to control when they're not able to express their emotions.
And parents are trying to create an obedient child, but not a child who can really thrive in with their own unique essence. And I think that fits perfectly well with the greater society, where you're just kind of from very early conditioned to just, say yes and obey and not think for yourself. And that's a huge issue, because then you're just completely disconnected and divorced from your own connection to nature. And then you're more easily controlled, and then we're creating things that are really not benefiting humans. When you're just taking orders from someone up above who has a lot of trauma, who's not able to make decisions that are actually serving people.
And not able to see what you want because you're suppressing your emotions. So how can they provide for you if they can't see what you want?
And that's a huge thing with also my history with being in past relationships, where if I'm not advocating for myself, if I'm not voicing what's coming up and I'm just kind of going along with things, this is a recipe for complete disaster, dark night of the soul, panic attacks, anxiety up the roof, and a way for a relationship to get toxic really fast. But then that's what I was used to. And so but it takes a lot to come out of that. Well, awareness to know that no, there really is another way. So so the breakthrough about that you cannot put the rational logic over emotions. Can you describe your epiphany again? Because I thought that was really a breakthrough for me to hear it from you.
Yeah, and I think that this is also something that can be a more gendered thing, although I would say our entire society also does this, which is just pushes the intellect over the emotions, just like we try to push ourselves over nature and not listen to nature. And I feel like emotions are a natural phenomenon, and they're actually uncontrollable. And we try to control them, and we do these things that just push them farther and farther in a way that disconnects us from what we want in life and how aligned we want. And it allows us to be in a situation where we're not very happy in the situation.
I also wanted to note that responding to your emotions is a very different thing from just unconsciously acting out emotion, because that is just as much of a ignorance about emotions when you're just reacting to it. We're not
rather
talking
than
about
investigating.
We're not talking about reacting to something that's just there, and just punching someone because you're not getting your way about something. That's not what we're talking about. But yeah, investigating, like really having the capacity to get curious and really feel into what the information is there inside the emotion. And then from there to know how to best act. And that's going to be the way to keep living in alignment when you're in a state of like responding to your emotions by really actively listening and caring for them and receiving it.
To interrupt you. Delivery. Do you like papaya?
We love papaya.
This
Yeah.
is one of the best.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. Yeah, papaya is actually my favorite fruit. I've decided recently.
I think it might be purple inside, I'm not sure. The
Purple
king
papaya.
is from the king of the Shan.
What?
But it's not my favorite fruit.
Really?
So this
Oh,
is
thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's nice and cold.
Thank you, Gary.
Nice. Got a papaya delivery.
From the king of Chan. Yeah, so sitting with an emotion,
Sitting with
listening
emotion.
to it, connecting with your body through how the emotion feels in you too. I think with thoughts it's really easy to get really disconnected
Mhm.
from where you are, and also I think that it's a lot, not just me, but I think also a lot of people would say that it's easier to connect with somebody through their emotions and understand and empathize with them through their emotions than what they're thinking, because I can feel poignant sadness or fear, and I relate to that a lot, but maybe the specific thought that you have about the fear I don't relate to. But when I can hear or think about and feel your emotion, whether you're saying it or not, it helps if you say it.
Yeah.
I really empathize with you. And
Because right, emotions are universal. That's something we all know within our own bodies. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pretty universal.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there was a time in my life where I was disconnected from anger and in embarrassment too. But I would still could relate to you on other emotions like sadness and fear and self-doubt and things like that.
What helped you reconnect to your anger, embarrassment?
I have to thank you for helping me by embarrassing me. Just joking. Yeah, I think I embarrassed myself. What's helped me reconnect to my anger? One, just realizing that I was disconnected from my anger, and not that it was a positive thing that I didn't feel my anger. Because I knew when I was younger that I wanted to know why I didn't feel good, and I didn't know why I didn't feel good. But if you're not connected to your emotions, then how do you know what needs aren't getting met in your life? It's harder to.
And what action to take so that you can get those needs met. Yeah. But I think, right, like when I'm experiencing anger and I express that to you, then I notice that you started getting triggered.
Yeah, I get very angry when Kwonyin gets angry, and Kwonyin gives me permission to be angry too. Kwonyin said to me, I want to know about the part of you that hates me. And nobody has ever said that to me, and it seems like a very extreme thing on the one hand. And I think that it's natural to, when you're upset with somebody else, to be angry with them. And did not work out well for me as a child because my emotions were suppressed.
So it's a really different thing for me to like really actively welcome you to share the parts of yourself that you're accustomed to trying to keep away in order to keep a nice vibe or something. But you know, that's why I didn't want that, because I know that to have a truly authentic, intimate relationship, I absolutely want to know about the part of you that hates me.
Yeah.
Or like is angry with me and does not like what I'm saying. And only then can we really, you know, get into it and really get to the heart of things, rather than kind of like walking on eggshells and not really getting to the point. I really feel like we can't really get to the point and thus have like a real sustainable solution to what's happening unless we like really, you know, unpeel all these layers and really get to the sometimes painful, ugly truths of things. But I'm like, yeah, bring it.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to just be Mr. Nice Guy with me. And I don't want to be the only one who's like doing that. I need all of your truth so that we can, have a truly secure relationship with the truth. You can't really have a secure relationship without knowing what's actually, like, I won't feel like you can really contain me until you know like what it is that you're helping to contain, to create a safe space for.
Yeah, I have to understand you first,
Yeah,
able
what the
to
danger is in me.
work with you and help us together. reach a point of understanding. Yeah. And it's so easy for me to get defensive when you're feeling emotions, especially emotions that weren't okay in my childhood, like anger was not an emotion that was really okay in my household. Like my dad never yelled at me as a kid. He was very controlling of the anger. And something that really helps me when I noticing myself being defensive, or with Kwonyin is blaming me, which there was a lot of blame in your household growing up. That was like the way you.
Yeah, that's my protector.
So that really, yeah, your protector, which I do, am learning how to appreciate. Because it does help me to feel my emotions too. Because if I see Kwonyin in your anger, I then can feel my anger coming up, being mad at you for being angry at me. But it's something I've started doing is channeling Kwonyin when we're in an argument. Because when I take on Kwonyin, I start really understanding what Kwonyin is going through. And I start talking to myself.
Okay, so can we describe what this is about channeling the other person?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an exercise where you kind of like, you put yourself in the other person's shoes and basically talk from their perspective. Speak from their perspective, like feel from their perspective. And then we'll have a dialogue like, I am you and you are me. And this could be a really great way to really gain awareness about the other person, especially if you're...
And cut out defensiveness.
Yeah.
You can't really defend yourself when you're the other person.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll even, criticize myself through your perspective, but it doesn't, when I do that, it's like I'm the one doing that, and I don't feel like defensive about it. And it's, it's just a really amazing tool, and we just started doing it, which is a pretty amazing.
And you know what's cool about it is that, because when I'm triggered, often, my protector part comes up, and it's my mafia protector. And for me, because that's like my pattern, I have a hard time accessing my emotions that are underneath the protector. My emotions and feelings of, more like powerlessness and fear and actually worthlessness. Yeah, the thing that's driving my protector to come out like really angry and hurt. And so what was really fascinating when you channeled me was how you were actually able to straight away access as me my feelings underneath. And it was such a revelation for me to see you as me, like speaking about how afraid I am and how worthless I feel I am and how I feel and how devalued and that was such enough for me because I was less connected to those emotions. I'm very connected to my anger, but less connected to the really vulnerable powerlessness behind it. But it's super important to be connected with the emotions underneath it because that's how you can really move through things rather than, simply reacting from your protector. Yeah, that was a big revelation. And I felt really seen by you doing that. Like I felt, all the vulnerability behind it, like felt really seen. And that was actually a moment where that was the most connected I felt to you. Because those deepest layers of myself were so being seen by you being me. Like I would never cry for my protector part as the mafia part. Like I would never, no, because I'm just straight up like wall.
Yeah, and I end up crying a lot when I'm channeling you too. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm kind of connecting to both of us at the same time and thinking about both of our, dukkha, our suffering, and both of our love. And it just really gets the tears coming out. And I think, a way to do that is just say, like stop for a moment and be like, okay, I am now Kwonyin, you are now Maxwell. And it happens just generally pretty easy to do it. It's like surprisingly easy. And then you do it and you can, talk about what, you're really feeling into their needs, expressing them. And you also can say loving things to them too. Which is kind of like you're saying loving things to yourself from their perspective, which also feels really good.
So you're also receiving at the same time.
It's like you're giving yourself self-love through them, actually.
Yeah. Which is so what it is, in a relationship. It is when you are being present with my emotions, that's you being present with yourself. Like I am the externalized anger. I am the externalized fear. And if you are able to help contain these emotions for them to really unfurl and express and be
Mm.
cared for and seen, you are doing the same for yourself.
Yeah, and I feel safe too, because instead of being against each other, we're kind of being more for each other that way, because we're actually each being the other person. So it feels very safe, where space where we can be vulnerable with each other, and it's also fun too. It's fun. I cry a lot during it. I get so much love and so much understanding, and you say emotions that I don't notice that I'm feeling too, because I'm blocked.
And I feel like it
feeling.
immediately kind of deactivates my protector.
And then once we've been doing that for a while, then we just pause and say, okay, now I'm going back into Maxwell, and you're going back to kwonyin. In through your nose, out to your mouth. That feels good for you. You're doing whatever feels good for you. Maybe doing a little stretch. Taking a really deep, nourishing breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, letting go of any stuck energy in your body. Taking your deepest breath of the day, letting it out with a little sigh. And just letting go of any focus. If your mind wants to think, let it think. If it wants to be still, let it be still. Really nothing to do. Slowly opening your eyes, they're closed, feeling your body, just giving yourself a little bit of gratitude for taking this time to learn about emotions, connecting to your inner self that's so often not seen in our modern world. Thank you for joining us today.